Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Saturday panel. My name is Barry, and I'm one of the panel directors for Brown China Summit. First of all, I really want to express my sincere gratitude for everyone that comes in here today. It's a Saturday morning, difficult for everyone. And another important part of today's panel is it is our first official in-person panel ever since COVID. Ever since COVID, we have been online, and today is a special occasion. We're going to send off a bunch of panels today, including my own Renaissance, Axiom Anew, Envisioning a Decentralized Future for today, as well as other in-person panels in the afternoon, going all the way in the evening. For our first panel, we're just going to have a very organic conversations between Lisa Vo, founder and CEO of ChipBrain, as well as James Lee, founder and CEO of E.J. McKee. And yeah, we'll get things started.
So are you guys all Brown students?
Yeah.
And also RISD students.
Sorry, what?
And also RISD students.
Okay, cool. What year are you guys in?
Sophomore.
Junior?
First year.
First year. Any seniors?
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for coming. I guess we'll start with introduction. I will begin. My name is Barry. As I said, I'm one of the panel directors of Brown China Summit. I'm also a sophomore studying applied math biology. It's my honor to be here with two distinguished speakers. I guess, why don't we start with Lisa? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your journey that led you to today.
Yeah, so I graduated from college not too long ago in 2020, studied computer science at Harvard. So I was, your guys' age a few years ago. I'm 25 now. I studied computer science. After I graduated college, I worked as a software engineer at Palantir for a full 3 weeks before I quit and decided to just work on my own company. And so I started ChipBrain. In brief, what we do at ChipBrain is we take video voice conversations and we analyze it for behaviors and emotional responses and reactions between the participants. So an example of a use case is if I'm like a salesperson talking to a customer on Zoom, what you would be able to do with our technology is measure every moment of that conversation. What did you say that caused the customer to become skeptical or become interested or become confused, and use that data to better coach your reps on what to say, what not to say, take customer feedback from conversations, and there's many other applications as well. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and if anyone in the audience is interested in entrepreneurship, becoming an entrepreneur, joining a startup, I'm happy to talk about my experiences there.
Yeah, that's super cool. I've known Lisa for a while as well, and when I first heard about ChipBrain, I was also super excited because I think it's such a cool technology that has so much applications even beyond customer support. But we'll talk about that more later, I'm sure. James, please tell the audience.
Yeah, well, I'm quite a few more years on the market. I thought, hey, Lisa, did NATO use your technology to take out the Russian generals? Well, it's her secret. She won't tell me. So I've done quite a few things. So I went to Harvard, one of the earlier people from China to go to the U.S. Different world. I see today, actually, the audience is not that big. 3 years ago, if you come to a similar event, it's going to be packed. You know why? You all know, right? Geopolitics. Things are different. So when I just came to the U.S., it was after June 4th. That's before you guys were born. At the time, a lot of Americans started learning Chinese. And then when that Tiananmen Square blew up, then those who study Chinese regretted. And then the number of people dropped. And a lot of people switched to study Japanese. So to sort of fast forward is those who study Japanese, including myself, really enjoy the cultural journey, and those who study Chinese did extremely well in their career. So you want to be contrarian, and the whole point is that follow your guts, but be an independent thinker. And so my first job at the time really, I didn't really have a big reference universe. When I was out of Harvard, I followed the crowd. I had a chance to join Microsoft. I didn't do it. It was probably a mistake. At the time, if you join Microsoft, anyone could get a lot of stocks and do very well. I didn't. I could have joined a firm like DE Shaw as one of the earliest employees. Again, a big mistake, didn't do it. I thought these were all mistakes, but instead I follow a lot of people end up at Merrill Lynch at Wall Street. So that's that's what I did. And if I say if I had better advice, I did get some advice. I could have joined a firm even smaller to trade toys, source toys from China, sell in America. At the time, toys in America were made in America or made in Taiwan. I could have done even better, but unfortunately, I didn't pursue any of that and ended up being on Wall Street. And then I ended up being in Hong Kong. I started in New York, Investment Banking International. Probably something, is there space in New York? Fly to Asia. It's great. Actually, they later sent us to Hong Kong. And so that's a brief career. And I spent as an intern at A.T. Kearney. And then I was head of, I found a job in Vienna, Austria, interestingly, as head of business development for a European manufacturing firm. The firm later was bought by Siemens, but you can imagine that's probably a $2.5 billion equivalent industrial firm. So I did a lot of, early days joint ventures, investment, restructuring, manufacturing on the industrial side in China, based in Beijing, fly to Europe all the time. So I know quite a lot about Europe. And then I went to Oxford, and then I spent time at McKinsey. Again, those are firms that are the good firms, okay? If you want to work there, you probably won't regret. And then I started, now the important thing is in year 2000, when the first .com came out, I started a firm. I raised money from Palo Alto. It's a B2B. So I was very successful in raising money. So that's a good thing about going to the Ivy League. You look around and say, oh, these are your classmates. They somehow think you're good, but you may not be that good, but they still give you the money. So I actually, with really nothing, but just some friends, in year 2000, I got a valuation on a piece of paper plus a sort of a show of an apartment. Okay, an apartment, I used my own money, and I hired a few people to pretend. No, they tried to do some programming, but really web pages. And we accomplished a post money of $12 million. I raised $3.18 million cash from Palo Alto. So that's one experience. And later that thing, the market, in 1 year, year 2000, NASDAQ dropped from 6,000 to 2,000 in a few months' time. So the whole thing, we closed it. And then I spent time in Northern California. I learned some winemaking, and later I went back and started EJ McKay. So that's where EJ McKay started as a consulting firm. I thought I don't know anything. I could only do PowerPoint, sadly. But the thing is, for the same company that's willing to pay McKinsey $1 million to do a PowerPoint, they're not even willing to pay me $50 to do the same thing. Although I was the guy who did all the work. So I end up turning this into an investment bank, and that worked out really well. So first we entered the Indian market, and then we became the biggest deal maker between India and China. We did extremely well, and then we went into Europe, and then gradually the firm grew. And in between, we also built other business. We invested. I have good experience, bad experience, but the work is very international. So you see, I've been out a bit longer, so there are different pieces, different geographies, different sectors that we have seen. I'm happy to share whatever you want to know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Actually, just last night in another panel, we were talking about how rocky the road has been, even recently, ever since COVID. There's so many changes, so many uncertainties, people moving around, changing careers. Just now, James, we're talking about there's so many decisions that perhaps you made that you either regret or think is meaningful, no matter how you phrase it. So I guess that would be my next questions for both speakers. What are some of the decisions that you made, or maybe you haven't made, but some of the things that you feel like you could have done better, or some of the things that you feel like it's not necessarily a bad decision, but a decision that definitely changed you a lot in a direction that perhaps you didn't see? I also think it's the questions that many of the audience are wondering, because speaking from personal experience, we are seeing a lot. We are in the process of making decisions, and we could use a lot of advice when it comes to that. So whoever wants to start.
How many of you guys would call yourselves risk takers? All right. Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, I mean, everyone's on some spectrum. I think that when it comes to making decisions, the ones that, first of all, I don't know if this is strange, but I don't regret anything in my life. I think that, you know, everything is an opportunity for growth, and it defines you. And if you are happy with your life right now, you wouldn't change anything in the past because you don't know how that would affect your current or future state. But looking back at the decisions I made, the ones I'm most proud of that I found to be most defining weren't the ones where I, you know, followed the conventional path. It was the one where I chose to do something that was of my own conception, like something that I conceived of that was, you know, more risky, and I think that adds flavor to your life. I was telling, you know, Joseph, right?
Yeah.
Earlier that you guys are all very privileged to be students of Brown or other universities. If you come from families with comfortable financial backgrounds, you are very privileged. And I believe that if you have that privilege, then you have a responsibility to do something for the world that is, you know, a little bit unconventional, because you do have a safety net. And I also think it's an opportunity for you to make your life into something truly exciting, that write your story in a way where when you look back when you're 70, 80 years old, you're gonna feel like this was an adventure, like your life was an adventure. And I think life should be an adventure. I grew up as an immigrant. I came here to the US from Vietnam when I was little. And my parents came here with like nothing. They didn't speak any English. And we started from the beginning. And it's, I think that even though there were hard times and there were what you would call failures, it feels to me like an adventure. And I think if you carry an optimistic mindset where when something goes wrong, you just take that as more fuel to make a better opportunity out of it, you won't regret anything you do. So I definitely propose that younger generations who have the privilege of being in the spot where you are, take more risk with your career and do something that you feel will uniquely define yourselves instead of, you know, following the crowd in every turn.
There's something that you reminded me of when you were speaking. There is this ancient saying in China called 塞翁失马焉知非福. The idea is there's this one guy who lost something, but it turned out to actually be an opportunity for later growth. And it's so important to have that level of vision and understanding in life that not everything perhaps is planned, but it doesn't mean it's not an opportunity for more growth. How about you, James? I mean, you have such a
that's
diverse
because I'm older. One day you'll get there, but before that. So first, Barry raised something very, very interesting. So I do want you to remember, constantly ask yourself, how can I do better next time? I tell my children that that's completely ignored. So you guys old enough to think, okay, so how can I do better next time? Now, this is something, and I learned this actually in a hard way. So when I was interviewing for JP Morgan, at the time JP Morgan was a commercial bank. For legal reasons, they couldn't do investment banking. So they interviewed me, and then I started bragging and things, and then my interview asked, so you've done all of these, right? You know, next time, you know, how can you do it better? Oh, I was like, oh my God. You know, I was blank. Okay, of course I didn't get the offer. So for that, but I think that's a valuable thing to yourself. Ask yourself, because you know how you can do better, but a lot of people don't think that way. Okay, now talk about decision making. I mean, quite often, if you're privileged, you can make your decision. If not, then you probably are forced to do certain things. For example, if you need to get paid, then you have to have a job that gets yourself paid. And if not, then sometimes you probably sometimes need to force yourself to do certain things, or you want to create a situation where you force yourself to do what you have to do. Let me think about a few incidents. So, and also you guys are, you went to too much school, you all went to good schools, and quite often, good schools can do two things. One is it gives you an inflated, ego and self-confidence. You might think you're actually better, almost like watching, video, like, if you keep playing the role of Mike Tyson, you might really think you are one, but you're not. But on the other hand, you're all sort of equipped or armed up with a lot of, some confidence, or sometimes you're not willing to lose that prestige, especially if you look at somebody who went to a good school, who ended up at McKinsey, or you want to join a small firm, right? 20 years ago, you want to join a small firm as like Yahoo, okay? If you did, you probably would have done very well. So do these and ask yourself, but think of my decision, and one was I was at McKinsey. Okay, if you're working for a firm like McKinsey, you can move on to a lot of good places, okay, for sure, today and yesterday. And what they do in the business school at Harvard, they teach you leadership as if you really are a leader, okay? Not everyone is, but there are these things. So and then there's timing. So at the time, there were people who we're talking to about raising money to do a startup, and I was a CEO. I pulled things together. I was able to get the money. I know I wanted to. There are people who wanted to follow me, and I was in McKinsey. I didn't work that long there. Okay, so you're supposed to work for 2 years. If you want to hop your job and shorter than 2 years, you're going to be looked at very badly. Okay, people are going to think you have no loyalty. Okay, you haven't done much because first 6 months you learn. Next 6 months you break even. Next year you make money for the firm. If you run away after before the first year, you just look back. I want to tell you, if you work anywhere, try to stay for 2 years. That is the right thing to say. That's the right thing to do. And I was only there for half a year. Okay. The cost, reputational cost, if you leave a firm like that, is a powerful firm. Good firm, good people. Okay. So here is people want to invest in me. Here's the people want to follow me. Here is what I know is the right thing to do. And I have to ask myself, what is the right thing to do? What is the right thing to do? There's probably no right thing or no right decision, but I quit. Okay. And I returned the signing bonus to them. I don't have to. There was no contract requiring me to give the money back. I returned the signing bonus. The partner was mad at me. I said, what else can I do? That was the decision I had to make. So I left McKinsey and started a startup in B2B. And then the market changed. The whole thing, didn't work out. No, then that comes the next thing is people want to teach you teamwork, right? You start teamwork, you have partners, right? No equal human being in teamwork. So is it really a good thing to work in a firm where the colleagues are teams? That's what I did. I think my mind was poisoned by the business school books, okay? So there are, for example, Li Ka-shing's company, right? He doesn't have teams, he's the boss. He made all the decisions and he was successful, right? And there are firms, that's VC funded and team. So somehow I was, too much into the books. And the firm, for a lot of reasons, was my fault. I actually listened to people around me. I should not have done that. It was a wrong decision to listen to people around me. I should have done. Because in a tech company, you can imagine, if you're an engineer, you probably think your product is the way. If you're sales, you think another way. If you're, financier, you might think another way. So anyway, the firm later did not completely fail, but we liquidated the firm and gave the money, part of the money back to investors. And I was back on the job market. And then I actually sadly sent an email. I always got an offer from BCG. Okay, I was probably the number 1 ranked, offeree. Then the partner sent an email back to me, kind enough, sarcastically say, oh, now consulting is actually not that bad, of course. So laugh at me, that's good. So I mean, that's a decision you think about. It was actually pretty sad. So you left McKinsey less than a year. You thought you were cool. You go to the media, you raise the money, and you're high flyer, and then the whole thing flops. And then you actually had nowhere to go. And then you thought, oh, I'm going to go back to the people who gave me offers. I got offers from every firm. And then they, it's humiliating. And then they also, turn their back on you and laugh at you. Okay, so that's one experience. Say, do I regret? I mean, nobody can regret anything, but that's what happened. Okay, that's what happened. So the next thing I did was I started EJMK. I thought I was going to do consulting, but I couldn't get projects. And then there's one thing that came very interesting. A friend of mine, a friend's friend, said there's an opportunity in India. I've never been to India. There's an opportunity in India, and then that client is not happy with BCG. Because I couldn't compete with BCG. I had 2 interns. I had 2 local interns in Shanghai. Okay, that was all I had. So, and then I went to a University of Chicago EMBA sort of reception event. And then the lady who ran the campus came to me and said, "So you just came from India, what it's like?" It's, a Caucasian woman, middle age, very sort of proper looking, nice person. In her eyes, I saw fear, okay? In her eyes, I saw. If you want to give an analogy, what is that fear? That fear is like today, if I tell you COVID positive, that kind of fear. Then that screwed me, that scared me. And you know what I did? I said, okay, fine, I'm very scared. I watch TV, it's all bombs, things blow up. So I have a duffy bag. I say, I prepare, at the time, I don't need to check in the luggage. I can hand carry 7 bottles of water. And then I bought 7 packs of biscuits. I say, if anything really goes wrong, I'm gonna survive on 1 bottle of water and 1 pack of crackers. I will live, and I run away. So then I went to India. And that opened up the entire new world. It's a beautiful, nice country, great people, so that started the whole business. And then we went to the meeting. So we took away the first client of BCG's ground client in India. One of them was Birla Group. Birla Group today should be over $100 billion sales. We know a lot. So we came to the meeting. We took it away. So that became our first client. And then later, to cut things short, is a few years later, we became the biggest deal maker. The firm transformed from a consulting firm to a banking firm. And then I think for a few years when I landed in Mumbai airport and took the taxi to the hotel in Queens, at the tip of the peninsula, I looked at the billboards, 1/3 of them were our current clients. So that, I say, you can't really agree with Lisa, you can't really regret, but you're gonna ask yourself, what went right, what went wrong? And is there any mechanism to have a little bit de-risking? So my biggest de-risking was a bag of 7 bottles of water and this is a 1-week trip, and 7 packs of crackers, and end up not needing that. But sometimes you can make a decision because you want to make it, but sometimes you don't have a choice. For me, I probably didn't have a choice. If I didn't go to India, what would I do? I was able to see if you have a good profile. If people like you went to a good school, you can go to a newspaper, people are going to write about you. Okay, but I had no income, zero income. And then when they went to India, that thing came. So I say just follow the instincts, follow the little traces of information, and then some things will happen, some won't.
Yeah, instinct is also some of the it's the word that I kept thinking when I was hearing both of you speak. I guess one of the questions that really came up to mind when Lisa was talking about your journey and James talking about your decisions, the word that keep haunting me was threshold. There's almost like a line that you have to cross, like a leap of faith, if you will, where you have to make the decisions that people don't perhaps make. And just hearing from both of you, I think it's fair to say that both of you have made that kind of jump or leap. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong. What would you say is your biggest motivation or your biggest instinct? What drove you to make the decisions that other people perhaps won't make? What was the either the initial push or your belief that you keep holding on to it? Again, whoever gets that.
Maybe. So now can you rephrase the question?
It's
what's
like
the threshold, right?
Yeah,
Threshold
what's
to a
your
decision.
motivation and the push that you got to make the decisions that other people around you perhaps didn't make?
Some of my experience, some probably other people's experience, probably quite often people are forced to do what they do. I borrow one example, Wahaha. Okay, Mr. Zhong, I've known him well. He was voted twice China's #1 on Forbes. And the paper money of $10 billion, self-made, okay? So his story was this. The guy was over 40 years old. He's smart, and I don't want to comment on that part. Okay, see, he was over 40 years old, and China was just over the Cultural Revolution. What could he do? And then he heard there were people, the Chinese kids, at the time in the 80s, kids were spoiled. So they didn't want to eat. Okay, their parents make them eat. The kids refused to eat, and then there was some. It's not medicine, or herbal things, right? Herbal crabs that can make the kids eat. So that's how he got into the business. He was really forced to do that because didn't have a job. He couldn't do anything. So he did some herbal drinks. You know the name Wahaha is for kids, right? So that's how it started, and then it snowballed into. In his heydays, he was on a paper $10 billion. So that's one kind of decision. He was forced. Okay, I was not forced to do the .com in year 2000. I was privileged. Okay, I already had savings. I had a good resume. I was not forced, but to do EGMK, I was forced. I didn't have a choice. Okay, so who was gonna give me a job? Who was gonna give a job to somebody who is already a CEO? Look, I'm not gonna do that because this person's not gonna work for me for long. Okay, I talked to a consulting firm called Roland Berger with less than a year's experience at McKinsey. I was still, any startup CEOs can sell. Mm-hmm. So I certainly impressed all of them in Germany and China. They want to hire me to run their China. 1 year's, relevant experience. And later the guy still say, James, I know one day you'll be gone. Okay, because so there are a lot of things where, I was not able to find something I wanted. I was forced to do this. And I was, I wanted to do the old tricks of selling PowerPoints for money. I wasn't able to do that. People are willing to pay money for McKinsey PowerPoint, but they wouldn't want to pay money for the guy who did the PowerPoint. Okay, I did all of the work. Okay, I did all of the work. I was able to. Under McKinsey, I was able to build, $10,000-$20,000 a day, but for myself, for our firm, they're not going to even willing to pay like for 2 months worth $50,000. They wouldn't do that. So I was forced. I didn't have a choice. So once you have a choice, then of course, then you start. Then you start thinking, and quite often, I would say for entrepreneurs, a lot of these decision making is not very structured. You try to make sense out of it, but it's pretty hard. It's not like LBO. You can do analysis. You can, in the more venture world, it's very hard. So do the best you can. I wish I'm able even ask myself. So how can we put something in perspective so that you have a certain threshold, certain system? It's not easy because if you're in the startup and also growth, but unconventional space, it is just very hard to make those decisions. So follow your feelings, and ask around. Ask around. Quite often these urges are personal. I'll give you one real world example. Okay, that's our client. So Tesla, is doing extremely well, right? What does it do? Tesla, have software. They buy batteries. Okay, battery software. They put things together, sell a car. So there's a company that's gone. So it was a client. The company is called Atika, German company. They burned 50 million euros. They do something. So Tesla is a passenger vehicle. Atika is a racing car. And Atika, after burning 50 million euros, they have former BMW, chairman to be the advisor. Okay, it's a beautiful car, and the company was looking for a buyer because nobody wanted to invest in it. They had a car that worked, just nobody wanted to invest in it because it's going out of business. To cut things short, you know what happened to them? Eventually, they were sold for the value of the building, worth nothing. You know what happened the next year? The next year, Tesla became popular. Before that, Tesla was only known for one thing, losing money, a joke, okay? So a year later, Tesla became, I would say this thing, if they have just continued for one extra year, that thing would have been not $500,000, but $1 billion. But with the best judgment of people, veterans of BMW, okay? The best engineers and financiers and so many people still. I say a lot of uncertainties in this. So that's a real case we worked on. And the timing was off by 1 year. Just that 1 year turned, $1 billion value into just the value of land and building. So I say there's probably not the perfect answer, but you probably want to have a few sounding boards and follow your guts and If you really like what you do, tough it out.
How about you, Lisa? What pushed you to come to your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think to echo what James said, when you hit rock bottom or when you're dealt a lot of constraints, that's when you can exercise, I think, some of your most creative energy. I have certainly found that when I was left with few choices, I was forced to be a lot more creative and thus a lot more innovative. So it's very true that there's a lot of opportunity that can come from being locked into one situation. I think the problem that you guys face is not a lack of choices, but so many choices. Like you guys can work at, you'll probably get like 3 or 5 offers if you really wanted to from very reputable companies. You're gonna have a lot of choices, and I think that your difficulty and my difficulty is finding out what is the minimum that you need in life to be happy, because then you know what you can say no to. So if you think the minimum that you need in your life is $200,000 a year and like a job at an investment bank, then that's a perfectly fine choice. But what if you could actually live with much less than that? So after I graduated college, I started ShipBrain, and I went from Palantir was paying me $140K. When I started ShipBrain, my salary as CEO was $30K a year, and I lived on $30K a year for over a year, and I found it to be perfectly fine. I had housing, I had food, and what else do you really need? And figuring out that I could live on $30K a year showed me that money wasn't that important to me after all, and that even if I made hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, I would not really expand my lifestyle to consume all of that money. So the decision for me was, if I'm going to be spending hours of my time earning money, I don't want to be doing it on a salary working for someone else. If I'm going to spend my time earning money, I want the opportunity at the end of the road to be massive. Like, I don't want to earn 500K, $1 million. I want to make like tens of millions. Because if I'm going to do it, why not? I personally don't want to work in a corporate environment and not have a lot of that creative freedom. So the choices that I made was more of this ideal that I really want my life to be something that excites me every day, something where it's unpredictable. I think that when you start a journey, you shouldn't know what it looks like when it ends. Like, if you start, let's say consulting, like let's say you went to become a consultant, you know what the end of that journey looks like. You're going to be a partner. And when you look at the partners in that firm, that is the future that you will inherit. And you should think about, like, is that where you want to be in like 10, 15 years? When I was at Microsoft, I interned there. I thought, I wanted to be a software engineer because that's what my peers wanted to do. They wanted to work at Facebook, Google, big companies, be an engineer, and then make lots of money. And when I looked around at Microsoft, and then later on at Palantir, and I looked at what the partners were doing, what the principal engineers were doing, I realized, like, I don't want to end up where they are in 15 years. I don't find that to be a very fulfilling lifestyle. And so it became very easy for me to come to the conclusion that these career paths, where when you start, you already know that in 15 years, your life is going to look like just like your managers. I didn't find that to be exciting enough. I want my life to be unpredictable. Because if you make your life predictable, that's the ceiling that you're putting on yourself. Like, if you make it your goal to become partner when you're 50 or 40, that's where you're going to end up. And I think that life can be so much bigger than that. It can be so much more unpredictable. It can be like, maybe not more successful, but at least it will be very unique and very different. And I think we also all have like dreams of the person that you want to become. I think that maybe you guys growing up, you guys had a certain vision of like the type of person that you would like to grow into if you had those opportunities, the persona you want, the personality you want, just a vision for your own character. And I think that if you follow the conventional path too often, you're going to what you're going to turn into is, you know, something that is maybe a bit more predictable. And so I don't know if this resonates with anyone, but I think like if you have a desire for adventure, like I think that, you know, philosophically, I think it's amazing to take a step back. Like take a step back, realize that it's a miracle to be alive. It's a miracle to experience everything you're experiencing. It's a miracle to have the opportunity to be a character in this world, and you can do anything you want. Like the way I think of life is it's like a game, you know? Like imagine if you were a character in a video game and this is like your playground, and anything is truly possible in this world. And when you approach life like that, and if you have the safety net to approach life like that, you can be you'll do things that no one ever thought of. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what guides me in my life.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's great. To live a life that embraces the unpredictable, you definitely have encountered many challenges. I imagine for both of you, difficulties and other things you have overcome or are still overcoming. If you don't mind, do you feel free to share some of the challenges that you've encountered either in your personal journey or your career that you feel like perhaps comes from the fact that you embrace the kind of lifestyle that you want to live, and how have you overcome it, or if you're still working on it, and what do you think is the most important lesson to take away when we have those challenges? Feel free to jump in.
You know, basically, sounds like so some difficult decisions. Since I've been around and see both other people's business, my own business, life is quite often if you work for, let's say if you're partner in a firm, okay, you know, yourself or a group of people, then you actually have to make a lot of difficult decisions. If you're an employee, probably the big decision just hop to another job that pays better, or gives a better deal, better location. One thing that recently happened to us. So we actually, we invest in company. When I created EGMK, I created another company that makes garbage disposers. Okay, if you have a home in America, you have one of those things. So I make those things, and I spend most of my time on EGMK plus investment. So that company has been struggling along for a long time, make good products. But you know, after COVID, basically lately it's not doing well because the world has become a contract manufacturing world. You know, China started as a low-cost manufacturing place. You get a few workers, have something, so they just through craftsmanship, okay, a few people can piece together something. So that's how things started. But today, you look at Xiaomi's or Huawei's or Apple's phone, they outsource. So you have to have scale. You have scale and design and marketing, everything. And our firm did well for a while, but it's not good. So it was a same thing that I created. EGMK has been doing well, and also our investment platform is doing well. But that particular company, which I started by just imagination, and then initially outsourcing, and later we did our own manufacturing, was not doing well. And to the extent, I think there are two decisions. One is I decided not to put in more money into it. So it was bleeding. And you know what's going to happen. If you don't put in more money, then you force the management to make money, okay? Because the thing is, if you don't devote, at least if you don't, for example, let other people run your company, and then you go out, advise them, the company is probably going to go under. So you have to work there. I didn't work there, so the company later was not doing well. I mean, I said all startup CEOs can do well. When I myself went to Europe, I had lunch with people and I walked away with 2 containers of shipping containers of orders. Okay, I was able to do that, but then 2 shipping containers of orders is only, let's say, $150,000 value, where if I close a deal, it's millions. So where to spend my time. But later I had to shut down that company. Okay, it was pretty sad. Something I started, it had to go. So first I cut off the additional good money after bad. And you imagine if you want to shut down a company, it's going to be very sad. People, you're going to have lawsuit, okay? It's ugly. It's ugly. So by last year, I had to do it, because if I don't do it, I say, people, you guys know what's going to happen, but very often it's hard to make that decision, because if I keep pumping good money after bad, people will stay there. They're not happy with their pay. They won't leave. It's going to move along for as long as I'm pumping good money. So later I tell myself, that thing is also associated with my name, but too bad, go. So that was a hard decision. That those people are going to say, okay, James, I follow you for such a long time, and it was a big mistake, We followed the wrong boss, right? I follow you for a long time, and you know what happened to me? I get fired. That's my decision, right? So, I mean, there are a lot of things that, one is money, one is corporate, one, you think about it. I had to be the bad guy to cut off that business, and those who, work for me, eventually had to sue me. And also I was ruining their lives. Okay, so that's a sort of a pretty basic low-end manufacturing business in China, which struggled along and didn't transform. The real big problem was I was not running the business, other people running the business. Okay, so that's one, I say, pretty hard decision. But there's no real big lesson. I mean, you guys know what you need to do. But then when it comes to something that sort of emotionally refuse to acknowledge, for example, if somebody gives a job at a hedge fund and pay you a lot of money, and you know that you are not a CS whiz and your math is so-so, and you know you won't do well, but you think, wow, that's a job from Goldman, so I should take it. Well, you shouldn't. You know that. So don't lie to yourself. You know what it takes. Okay, just quite often we in the back of our mind know what is the right decision, and if it's emotionally uncomfortable, a lot of people refuse to take that, and like myself. But if you refuse to take that, fine, drag on for another 2 years, and you still have to do that.
Over here, Lisa.
Can you
Yeah.
the question?
I think it was kind of weird to my interviewers. So I was looking for an internship, and it was hard. It was just hard. Nowadays, there's a structured environment. You're gonna get these things. We didn't. There were, but those days were like McKinsey would hire 4 or 6. Most firms didn't want that. It's very hard, and my life was just struggling to find an internship. You think about all I did, and also needed income. I not only needed for my resume, I needed income, also, and I just kept looking, and I was not able to secure internship with any of the known names. Let's say the source of information today compared to my time is the same. Okay, you just have it on the web, and we went into the career services still at those 54 downstairs street, right? Still the same building. You just flip in the paper, but I was lucky, and also I didn't have a choice. So I had to. I mean, I came from China. Where did I go? I had nowhere to go. Okay, I had nowhere to live. I had nowhere to go back to. I couldn't go back to China. So you can say, sure, I was persistent. You can say the nice real perseverance, but actually didn't have a choice. So I kept looking until I found an internship at a company called River Road International in Coscoff, 99 River Road, Coscoff. It's near Greenwich, Connecticut. My intern there. So there was one Harvard alum, class 85, Rob Jones, and then another person called Nick Mayonas, and then another person called Bob. I was intern, and it was a hedge fund, long short hedge fund. You know why I was able to work for talk to the hedge fund, because that was a hedge fund, and the hedge fund probably had $50 million to trade, And by by 06, when the company called Amaranth, when they blew up, they lost $6 billion, and then they blew up. So that company turned out to be the biggest hedge fund in the world. Okay, but when I interned for them, they were a little player. So, I mean, my time was just, I would say look for an internship, and if you have more people to be your sounding board, ask around and say what is the best. First, you have to have choices, then you make a choice, right? If you don't have choices, then secure those choices.
Lady first.
Okay, I guess this question applied to either James or Lisa is a general question about the current trend in the world. So we have been talking about there's a lot of geopolitical changes. There has been changes even starting like earlier, like maybe a generational trend. The question is, what are one or two opportunities or trends you feel most excited for at this moment, or starting from a period like a few years ago?
I would say just in general things, right? If you look at what happened in the past 20 years, anywhere, a few things that's very obvious. One is technology. Technology changed the world. It will continue to be so in the foreseeable future. So that's global. And technology can really, there are so many verticals and endless. So that's one thing. I think, Stanford used to be, I mean, in the past, if anyone got into the Ivy, they won't go to Stanford. Okay? Today, actually, it's a very, it's a very attractive choice for a lot of people because they are in the hub of technology. Okay, so technology is one thing. Another thing, actually not that sexy, is actually real estate. It doesn't mean you need to do real estate, okay? In the past years, if you look at America, look at China, look at Vietnam, look at Berlin, look at London, okay, actually, real estate has been just steadily going up. And you look at who are the people who make big money in China and Vietnam, in Europe, again, real estate. So technology, real estate is something, it's a business thing, put it aside. And another thing is actually consumers. What Lisa described and things, especially each one of us is a consumer. Okay, so you can enjoy sitting in a dining hall, or you can enjoy eating junk food delivered by somebody to your door, but consumers, you continue to live and consume. So the things that probably is going to be a perpetual area of excitement and interest will be really, on the one hand, as a people. They will continue to do what they do, but then they will also evolve. And then technology, these are the two most important things. I guess, yeah, so the rest will be, I think, just be contrarian, don't follow the crowd, right? Do something that less people do, because if you do something everybody does, it's going to be very competitive. You just have to be much, much better, and that's hard. You know how I got in Harvard? Because not a lot of people applied, so I was lucky. I will never get in today. So yeah, tech people, and also better avoid the most competitive areas because it just comes through.
I would say open education, online education, and just more access to knowledge and information is one of the most positive trends I've seen in the world. The fact that someone from Vietnam, Malaysia, India has access to online courses to teach them to build software, and we're seeing billion-dollar unicorns coming out of Southeast Asia, coming out of India now. That level of access was not possible like 20 years ago because there wasn't a lot of knowledge and a lot of education that was open to people. So I think that's gonna fundamentally change the world, married with the trend of remote work. Now that physical geopolitical boundaries don't play as much of a role in work and in hiring anymore, opportunities and talents can be found all over the globe. And I think that the more we can, it's one thing to move really fast in technology, like in Silicon Valley, you move so fast, right? But think about all the people and institutions and industries left behind. Now they have a chance to catch up. So I'm very optimistic about that. And I also think, like as I said, I think the world is becoming less selfish. Like I think that people are becoming less centered on succeeding as an individual, and they're becoming more collectively conscious of succeeding in sustainable ways and in ways where it's a win-win situation for everyone. So anything to do with sustainability, better energy sources, you know, social impact stuff, like I think that stuff really matters, and I think that the latest generation has done a great job of demanding that. I have a lot of hope for the world.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I have one question. Yeah, I'm pretty curious about like what's your mindset change moment, your past experience. It doesn't necessarily to be an experience that you successfully manage like adversity situation, but generally speaking, like a mindset change moment.
A mindset changing moment.
Yeah.
A mindset changing moment. Like you mean moments that where you felt it was defining your approach to life.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily to be like some experience that you manage like diversity or something. It doesn't necessarily to be that. Just generally speaking, like aha moment or something, feel
Yeah.
being inspired, or okay, I'm doing something really creative, something
Yeah.
like that.
For me, I think those moments, it was a series of moments, and what they all had in common was it was me stepping up and saying no to a previous belief or expectation that I had grown up with. So growing up, it's very stereotypical. My parents like wanted me to be a doctor.
Right, that's exactly.
We
You
were
help people.
Vietnamese like immigrants, you know, what could possibly be better than being a doctor in America? And so ever since I was like 2 or 3, it was drilled into me that I am going to become a doctor. And one of the most defining moments of my life was in middle school. In 8th grade, I was like the valedictorian of like our middle school before high school, and I was given an opportunity to speak like at the graduation ceremony, and it was like 800 people of like parents and students. And I had never said this to my parents before, but I decided that it was the perfect moment to tell them that my parents want me to become a doctor, but I don't want to be a doctor. And I just kind of like, I just said that in front of the crowd, and the audience gasped. And it felt very liberating. You know, it's a feeling of liberation when you can say no to something, and it also is very powerful. When you are aware and conscious enough of yourself to realize that you've been conditioned to want certain things in life, to believe that you should do certain things in life, to have certain beliefs in life. And when you start questioning them and forming a mental list of the things you're going to say no to, that's definitely a mindset changing moment.
I just understand that probably in the process that we're trying to challenge existing framework, that could be possibly like that we're doing something creative and something really changing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. The world is full of existing frameworks.
Right, exactly.
Like Brown University is a template of an existing framework of university. Like universities weren't always a thing. You know, if you look at society as like pretend you're like an alien and you like landed on Earth and now you're living like the life of an Earthling, and you look at the way society's been structured. There's a lot of templates that you're following that may not be the most optimal situation, but it came to be because, you know, like it just organically arose. But you should be critical of those templates, and you should definitely challenge them.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, Alden.
I guess thank you for sharing. It is truly inspiring. And my question is, I'm deeply inspired by your story about like you finding the niche in India and how that experience of actually being in that place sort of empower you and just to push you in your journey forward. But since, as we all know, like since COVID, this kind of geographical limitation sort of blocks us and also like deepen the stereotypes of certain areas in the world, and also it might block the chances to find the niche. So and also you mentioned that you graduated like 2 years ago. If I'm calculating correctly, it's like during the time of COVID. So I'm just thinking about for you two as entrepreneur and as like very successful people, how does COVID sort of change the process or like the mindset of finding the opportunity or like the niche?
So you're the one from RISD, right?
I'm not. I'm from Brown, but like yeah.
But yeah.
No, COVID basically forces people to use Zoom. And in other parts of the world, they use Teams more. That's actually a real fundamental change, is that a lot of the communication, you don't have a choice but to use virtual. So, and that fundamentally changed temporarily also for human relations. And what I find is that when really, the playground is completely level, that is all of you, everyone has to do Zoom. You probably don't like it, but you have to do it. So in 2020, 2021, a lot of our deals were done virtual. We did a deal between Norway. I was based here, and then our client is in Oslo, Norway, and our team is in Hong Kong and Shenzhen and in Shanghai. And we closed the deal where nobody met. If you don't meet, you still can do it in the US, because this is a relatively transparent market where if you really want to throw out a lawsuit, you can still do it. But you think about Norway, US, China, and then, emerging market, you can't really trust anyone. But still, we closed the deal because there was, the whole thing about all of these is that you have to be credible. If you say, I'm not able to fly, I'm not able to meet, and it's credible, then you have to do it. When I say the word temporary, is that relationships and things that's created virtual, they don't stick. Then once you have, for example, I tried to do something with somebody in Turkey, and that never really worked out because that's an emerging market where the trust level is low. Some countries such as Scandinavia, US, UK, trust level is high. In some countries, emerging market trust level is low. So it's not the content. Okay, virtually you can communicate the content, but up to this point, the human relationship still need to look eye in eye. If you can't see this guy and I can't shake that guy's hand, it's pretty hard. So in that sense, actually it benefits people in the establishment, especially those who go to the Ivy League, because if you look at somebody from, Penn or Dartmouth or Yale, probably you're going to trust each other better because there's some background you can share that is, if you lie and cheat at Brown, you'll be expelled, okay? And same thing at Dartmouth. So you can probably say, okay, that's sort of a reference, point. But if you go to say, let's say the famous university in China, if they cheat, what happens? They may be very proud of not being caught. Okay, so if your question is about COVID, I say it worked, virtual communication worked a bit, but people are quite anxious. For example, I come here, I think we're supposed to prove that we're vaccinated. Did anyone ask? Probably not, right? Because people are quite anxious to get back to the life that is human. In that sense, actually not much has changed.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's on the one hand, I feel like virtual stuff has definitely transformed a lot of things. But on the other, at the end of the day, we're still human beings. We need to connect. We need to be in a group. And if anything, I think today is a proof that although our organizations have been virtual for 2 years, we're getting back and we're rebuilding stronger and greater. Thank you so much for coming here today. If anything, I really hope that speakers have inspired at least some of you. If so, we've done our job. That's why we're here, right? We're not just bridging cultural connections, but we're also bringing people together so that we can do great things. There will be lunch served in, well, like 5 minutes, yeah. And there will be more panels in the afternoon. Please feel free to stay. My colleagues will put up, I'm sure, amazing panels from TD, from Joey, from Grace, and speakers as well. Feel free to connect and talk. And thank you so much for coming here.